Hello guys, I think we have just joined and all the participants too who are about to come to view this video. Actually, I'm taking a session on income tax for the CMA intern and the BCom aspirants who are new to this subject. So we will start it in a few minutes. So I'll be covering all the basic concepts as well as the complete income tax, which is applicable for the CMA inter subject and as well as for the BCom subject. Just give me a minute. So what do we have? Today we are going to read income tax. So I will just give today an overview of the income tax. So let's start. So what do you mean by the term tax? What do you mean by it? Tax. So tax is something which is charged on the total income of a person. Tax is something which is charged on the, it is something which is leviable on the income of a person or on the supply of goods or services or both. So this is tax. You must all be familiar with this word because it was imposed in the late centuries. It has been used, widely used over the decades. Like in the prehistoric period, the kings, the Mughals were also imposing this system because it was a source of revenue for the ruling parties, ruling kings, and the emperors. And now this is also a source of income, or we can say a source of revenue, high revenues for the ruling government. So by collection of this amount, the governments can use it for the development and upliftment of the society. This is tax. And currently, what do we have in taxation system? Basically, we will discuss about two things. There are two types of tax, like direct tax and the indirect tax. So there will be two type of tax. What will be the direct tax plus indirect tax? So we will be covering direct tax here. Indirect tax we will take it in a separate class, but I will give you the basic idea of indirect tax. So now what is direct tax? So the most widely used in India is the direct tax, and I can give it an example. Like you must have heard about income tax and wealth tax. So income tax is the tax which is direct tax. And why it is a direct tax? Because it is imposed, or it is leviable, or you can say it is chargeable on the total income of a person. For an example, your for an example, suppose A earns rupees 3 lakhs, so the income will be chargeable, that so the sorry so the tax will be chargeable on A. So this will be income tax. Why? Because A is earning rupees 3 lakhs and 3 lakhs is the income of A. And as I said, income tax is charged on the income of a person. So this will be charged on A. So thing is, now you must be familiar with few terms like government. Who is in government? Who is the government? So government are the set of peoples. Government are the set of people with the authority to govern. So government is the set of people who have the authority to govern a country or a state. So this is government. Now, who can impose tax and who can collect levy tax? Who can? The government. But can government, who gave the government the power to collect and levy tax? Who gave the power? The power is given by the article mentioned in the constitution of the India. It gives the power to the parliament or the government to impose, to levy, to charge, to collect the tax. So in the constitution of India there is eighth schedule, not eighth schedule, sorry, seventh schedule, seventh schedule, article 246 of constitution of India. It gives the government to the power to charge, to collect, to impose tax on the income of a person. So under the under the seventh schedule, what do we have? Under the seventh schedule, there are three lists notified. That is, the powers lies with whom? Power lies with whom? So there are the three lists. So the first one, list one, list one, or the union list. So what is it? The power to levy and collect lies with the parliament. The next two will be the list two. What is it? List two. Or it can also be called state list. So you can understand from this that a power in the list 2 is given to the state government. And the third point is concurrent list. List 3, that is the concurrent list. That is, power lies with both the governments. So what we can hear is that the authority to charge and to levy, to impose and collect tax in this country is with the parliament. And the power to charge, to impose, to levy the tax is given by the seventh schedule of the seventh schedule, article 246, given in the Constitution of India. So the article itself notifies three lists, that is the list 1, which gives the power to the parliament, that is the central government, and the list 2, which is the state list, given power to the state government, and third is concurrent list, which give power lies with the both the government. So now you must framed the basic idea in your mind about the tax. So basically the tax is of two types, the direct tax and the indirect tax. The most efficient direct tax, most example, renowned example, or most familiar example with for direct tax is the income tax. So there is a thing that no tax shall be levied or collected except by authority of law. So this is what I was saying. No tax shall be levied or collected except by authority of law. No tax shall be levied and no tax shall be collected except by authority of law. That is, the authority for imposing, for levying, for collection must be given, must be authorized by the law. And what is this law? Where it is given? So the law will be tax shall be levied and collected under a law framed by the government. This is it. So the law framed by the government. Law framed by the government. So what is this? What is this? Law framed by government. Which law I am talking about? Which law? It is the, for the income tax, it is Income Tax Act 1961. So it is the Income Tax Act 1961 which govern the income tax and the goods and service tax. It governs the indirect tax. So basically the difference, now we will talk about the difference between the direct tax and the indirect tax. Just give me a minute. So now we will learn the difference between the direct tax and the indirect tax. What is it? So what is a direct tax? I have given you an example. Direct tax is income tax. Why I'm saying income tax? Because we are familiar with the term. So what do you mean by direct tax? It is a tax. Direct tax is a tax which is imposed on the income of a person. Income of a person. So what do you mean by income of a person? Suppose a person named A. Suppose a person named A is earning an income of rupees 5 lakh per annum. So the tax will be charged on the 5 lakh and there is a criteria, the slab rate is given. Now we are not going here in depth because the name person, this person, name person has some things included. We will talk about it later. So for a fair idea, direct tax is a tax which is imposed on the income of a person. And what is income indirect tax? It is a tax which is levied on the supply of goods or services or both. So this is indirect tax. So indirect tax is levied on the supply of goods or services or both. Now the thing is, is not every person pay income tax. Everyone who consume goods or services, everyone who consume goods or services pay indirect tax. Why I'm saying this? Everyone who consume goods or services pay indirect tax. Why I'm saying this? Because suppose you have purchased a Maggie and you are going to consume it. And in the back side of the wrapper, you will see the MRP, which is given as 10, and it is inclusive of all taxes. And what taxes are it talking about? It also includes the indirect tax, GST, the goods and service tax, which is levied on the supply of goods or services or both. So that's the indirect tax. And not every person pay income tax, because to pay income tax, a person to be eligible to pay income tax must have a certain income which is specified. The burden of tax cannot be shifted. Up the major difference. The burden of tax cannot be shifted. What do I mean by these words? By this statement, I mean that if a income tax is imposed on, for an example, X, then X has to bear the burden. X will be the sole person to pay the tax. He will only be liable provided certain conditions. But when you see indirect tax, the burden can be shifted. Indirect tax, the burden can be shifted. What do you mean by this? So it is levied on the supply of goods and services. Indirect tax is levied on the supply of goods and services, or both. I'm talking about that example. Let's go to that example, Maggie. So you have consumed a Maggie, but before it was made by the manufacturer. So manufacturer has paid the tax on it. Then the manufacturer must have sold it to the wholesaler, and wholesaler have paid the tax, and by implying ITC, the certain rules are there, and they get the credit, and the tax was nullified to a certain extent. That means they didn't have to bear the burden, and then wholesaler took the ITC of his tax payable and it given it to the retailer, and the retailer sold up to consumer. The process continues, but when the good arrived at the consumer, and the consumer is the sole person who will consume the goods, the burden has been shifted to the consumer. GST is a consumption based tax. The person who consumed it had to pay the tax because he cannot take the ITC, the input tax credit. So this is the difference, and the direct tax is it is governed under Income Tax Act 1961, and GST is governed under Goods and Service Tax Act 2016. So this is the major differences. Are we clear? Now, what we'll be talking about? So we will be talking about the components. Now, what we will talk about? Components of Income Tax Act. Components of Income Tax Act. Now, what are the components of Income Tax Act? So, sorry, my mistake. Not components of income tax, components of income tax law. Income tax law will be number A, Income Tax Act. B, Annual Finance Act. C, Income Tax Rules. D, Circulars and Notifications. D, Legal Decisions of the courts. So these are the components of income tax law. The first one is Income Tax Act. What is Income Tax Act? So the levy, Income Tax Act. First, we will come this. I have given you 4 components of income tax law. So the 4 components of income tax law will be Income Tax Act, Annual Finance Act, Income Tax Rules, then comes circulars and notifications, and then legal decision of the courts. Legal decisions of the courts. Now, Income Tax Act, the levy, as I earlier told you, the levy of income tax in India is governed by the Income Tax Act 1961. So the Income Tax Act, the levy of income tax in India is governed by the Income Tax Act. Now, the word the Income Tax Act is applicable to which states? So, Income Tax Act is not applicable to particular states. It the power of this act extends to whole of India, including Jammu and Kashmir. This act came into force. This act came into force on 1st of April 1962. And this act undergoes a change in every finance year. Every annual finance act is passed. So it undergoes a change every year by the annual finance act passed by parliament and other legislation in the taxation law. The next is, this is about income tax act. Now the second component is the finance act. So you all must be aware in that in every financial year our honorable finance minister announces budget in the month of February. So this is the finance act. This becomes, later on this becomes act, and uh, this become part of this. That is, income tax act undergoes change with the finance act passed. First the budget will be presented, then it will be passed by the parliament, then it will become an act and it will be incorporated into the income tax act. So this is the finance act. Then next comes income tax rules. Income tax rules. What are these? What are these? So certain rules are given from time to time for some clarifications. And who is the authority power is the CBDT. So who is in CBDT? It is the Central Board of Direct Taxes. This is the administrative, this body has the administrative authority over the rules. So for the proper administration, for the proper administration of the act, the CBDT frames rules from time to time. These rules are collectively known as income tax rules. So these are income tax rules. Third comes circulars and notifications. These circulars are also issued by the CBDT from time to time with certain specific problems to whenever there are some doubts regarding the levy of tax on certain items, levy on the deductions to be given, if there are certain doubts. So circulars are given by the CBDT for clarifying the specific doubts from time to time. So these are the circulars. And the circulars are for guidance of the officials in charge of the income tax. Then there are case laws, so legal decisions of the courts as well. So whenever there are some disputes between the parties, that means the adjudicating party under the income tax act and the appellate, that is the person who is the assessee, the person who is liable to pay the tax. When there is a dispute between both the parties, they go for arbitration process with the with our honorable courts. And when there a decision is passed, that is a legal decision, that is the decision will be made by the court, and it will be the clarification for a specific doubt, for treating some item of tax. So these, in various times, in various new cases, a reference in when parties go to the court for redressal, uh, then a reference is made to the decisions already made by the courts. So these were the components of income tax law. We are just having a basic idea of it. We will later discuss it in depth. So what we came to know, that income tax law. Okay, what is tax? There are two types of tax, that is basically the direct tax and the indirect tax. For an example, for direct tax will be income tax and wealth tax, and for indirect tax it will be goods and service tax. Earlier, indirect tax was also consist of excise. It is still there, but not on all items. And customs, sorry, not customs, VAT, CST, etc. These were indirect tax. Now, income tax, we have come across like income tax, the burden cannot be shifted. It is charged on, levied and collected by the government under the authority of law. Which is the law? Income tax law. Under the authority of income tax law, the power is given in the 7th schedule of the Constitution of India in Article 246. There are three lists given: union list, state list, and concurrent list. So this is it today. Um, I was just giving this overview, and we will start from the in the next class. Just I think um, you must have got the basic idea of the text. So this was basically meant for CMA Inter and the BCom aspirants. Thank you so much.